And welcome to the third installment of Sniper Sundays. I hope everybody is well and enjoying the long weekend. It is, of course, Easter today, so happy Easter to everybody. So I hope you're all enjoying your weekend. Now, on today's episode, I'm going to do some similar to the previous episodes and look over some fundamentals and then some chart work and some technical analysis. And I'm going to throw in a few things that maybe some of you may not know, but for anyone who does know, it'd be good to look at this for the week ahead. Again, like last week, I want to start off by saying thank you for everybody who viewed the last week's video. Again, I had loads and loads of comments and lots of views on that. So thank you for all watching, and I'm glad that you're all liking the material. So what I want to start off on today is actually the dollar index. Now, many of you may know about this, many of you may not, but this is a tool that anyone trading should really know about and should be keeping a look at an eye on this, or keeping looking at this every day, where especially as most people are trading against a US dollar cross. So for instance, Euro USD, GBP USD, NTD USD, it all involves the US dollar. So what this is here is the dollar index. The DXY, as you can see up here on the top left corner of my chart, this is how you find it on TradingView, which is this software, for many of you that are asking. And what this dollar index actually is basically it measures the US dollar against the 6 major pairs. So like I said, the Euro, GBP, NTD, Aussie, AUD, and so on. And it shows how it's reacting, or how it's strengthening or weakening against these basket of currencies. So when you're placing a trade on a US dollar cross, you really want to be looking at this pair first to kind of give you an idea, or a bit of an understanding as to how the US dollar is behaving, and what if it is going to get stronger, or if it's bullish or bearish for instance. And yeah, you want to be keeping a quick eye on this before placing a trade on the US dollar cross. Now, the reason I brought this up today is I just want to show you. We can see here this pair has been, not this pair, but the dollar index has been ranging for quite a while. So you can see here the resistance that was formed over here. If I just bring on this sort of range here, let me just drop down to, this is on a weekly chart. So yeah, if I just see where we made this weekly high up here, came down, had made a low the previous week. Well, I didn't come even lower actually to this low here. The last higher low on this uptrend. So we had a higher high, higher low, and then higher high, higher low here. Then we made a higher high. So we've sort of been in this range with this on a weekly chart. Now I drop down to the daily. You can actually see we've actually been in this range for a long time on the daily chart. We did manage to break out to the downside, but pull back up and made a double bottom. But mainly we've been within this sort of region since, let's look, back in October 2018. We've sort of been in this range of 95.70 to 97.70, so about a 200 pip range with the US dollar. So obviously this is going to take effect on any US dollar cross, like I said, and we are reaching the top of this range again at the moment. So this is why I brought it to your attention today, because this is going to affect some pairs that I'm going to look at in a moment. Now, this pair, I did print a bullish day, if you see here. I think this was on Thursday. We did print a bullish day here, a big bullish engulfing. You can see some rejections here on to the downside, some pin bar rejections and so on, as we look like we're going to push up a little bit higher. Now I will be watching to see whether we can actually come up and retest the former resistance, which is obviously around this area here. But I'll keep this sort of range on for the moment, just so you can see it a lot more simpler. But I will be watching price this week as we come up and retest around the top of this range. Now, if we do blow through and break through this range and the US dollar gains strength, then there can be a lot of upside, especially after being sort of consolidating and stuck in between the range for so long. If we manage to break out to the upside and it can actually stay above this sort of range, not like what we've done here, where we've broken and then pulled back inside. If we can manage to break above and stay above, then we could see the US dollar gaining quite a bit of strength and moving quite far up to the upside. My next target would be up around you can see my monthly key level here. So with that in mind, looking at Euro US dollar, as I said, if we let me just quickly flip back. If we see the US dollar index going up, then what we should see with a pair like Euro US dollar is the pair coming down. So you can see similar to this bearish day here, and so you see this sort of price action, these last two candles, is very similar to what you're seeing with these last two candles here. So if we see this push higher, we should see the US dollar gain strength and this pair and the Euro US dollar move lower. So you've got to have this in mind, as I said, when trading the US dollar crosses, and so then it gives you sort of another confluence or something else to check before taking that trade, to give you one more sort of confirmation as to whether you should take that trade or not. Now, Euro US dollar, this pair we're looking at the last few weeks, and it's the most traded pair, so I'll look over this again. Now, last week I was looking at this pair, and I put on this Fibonacci tool, and I did think that we could push up higher and try and test this 61.8% Fibonacci tool or Fibonacci level, and possibly come up even higher to the trend line once again. Now, I mentioned, I think, on my first video how when you're trading, you really need to be open to things changing at any point. I think I mentioned this in last week's video. You can't set a target for yourself and then stick to that and then see that the market is giving you obvious signs and then not take the advice that the market's giving you. You need to be open to changing your mind at any time. Now, for instance, Euro USD, this was a very, very obvious short trade here. A short trade from this 50% Fibonacci level. Now, I think last week we were, let me just drop down to the 4 hour. Last week we were, I'll take this away for a minute. Last week we were around these areas here. I think on the Sniper Sundays, I explained that I was expecting to see a pullback to sort of this level here, which we achieved, and then I was looking for a push higher. Now, I saw some people sending me messages that they actually got in around here, and they got in on that retest of that sort of support level. And you can sort of see it sort of came back down to retest this trend line one more time. Now, from here, we had that push higher, back up, and we looked like we were going to break up and go higher and retest that 61.8% retracement that I mentioned and come up towards the trend line. But then here we can see we had we ran into resistance one more time, and the third time. So we've obviously found resistance one, this the first time, second resistance, come up for a third time, and again rejected it. So then the first obvious sign here on the 4 hour was obviously the third rejection, the third became the final rejection. We had this 4 hour bearish engulfing, and for me here that was enough to look at taking a short trade. But if we also look on the daily chart, we can see, I'll take away this highlighted tool. You can see here that on the daily we had these 1, 2, 3 rejections, and then we had that fourth final shooting star rejection. On the daily, this is why I actually say that when on market close at 10 p.m. in the UK time, GMT is when the market on the trading view, when the daily candles closes, that's one of the most important times to actually look at the market. Because if you look at the market on the daily close here and you see a daily candle like this shooting star, then it shows you how much rejection there's been, and it more or less is inviting you to take a short trade the following day, because you can see that any buyers are really, really struggling to push up any higher, and the short sellers are coming in and pressing price all the way back down and taking away any ground that the buyers have made. Now, let's say we go back down to the 4 hour chart. If we wanted a bit more confirmation before taking this short trade, you can see here then we had that break of the counter trend line, and we are now aiming at coming down lower on euro. So at the moment, if we can manage to keep pushing down lower, coming back down to retest the MA at the moment, I am looking at this pair coming down, eventually back down to these levels here, where this support is. But you can see the reason that we found this support currently at where we're at is we've hit this point, the second point on this trend line. So what I'm watching is price around these areas. If we can break back below this level here, if we can break below this support, I'll be waiting for a retest as resistance. And if we reject this level, and it will give me the confirmation that the buyers are definitely not able to come back into the market, then there'll be another short trade on here from this level. We're looking at coming from this level and aiming at coming down to these lows. Now I would look at taking some some profit at these levels, but then if we can break this level, then this pair can go a lot lower. Overall, that Fibonacci that I showed you, just bring it back up again. You can see that we've rejected the 50% Fibonacci 1, 2, 3, 4 times. We've had that bearish engulfing. If we can continue to break through the support and then come down and break this very important support down here, then we could come a lot lower, all the way down to these levels down at 1.1120 and 1.1030 in the long term. But what I am very interested in here is I can see this happening and Euro US dollar coming a lot lower if on the dollar index we can break above this daily range. If we break above this, I think this can move to the upside very fast, which would then mean that if we break below this support here, we could have that fast move down to those Fibonacci levels that I just explained and down to these key support levels. Now, if we do actually fail to break out above here and actually retest the top and push back down, then I will be watching at Euro doing something similar, and maybe we might come down to retest this support and we might push back up to the upside. So you have to have both sort of scenarios in your mind, and that things can change at any minute, but that's what I'm looking at on Euro USD. So I'm going to go over a few other pairs. I'm getting a lot of requests, but there's so many different pairs that people request. So I'm just going to go over a few that I've gone over the past few weeks and some of the more important ones. Now, Euro GBP is something that we looked at on Sniper Sundays Volume 1. And I gave the entry to take, which was on the pullback here. On this pullback. So quite a lot of people actually got in on this one. Took a long trade from here. And ever since then, we've been not ranging, but we've been just pushing higher or trending higher, very slowly. But we are nevertheless trending. So we've got the higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, and we're just slowly creeping up. Now, last week I actually did point out this level here, which was quite important. I was looking at maybe if we could get some rejection on this level, that we could look at coming and taking a short, and if we could break the counter trend line that I drew on last week. Now you can see we're starting to break out, but it was nothing really convincing. We had that 4-hour doji candle here, so nothing was too convincing on this to take the short just yet. But we kept pushing higher, and once we broke above this level, once we broke above this resistance here, which we have, I expected to come up and tap this 0.8700 level. Now at the moment we've broken above. We've come back to retest this level as support. We're sort of just consolidating at the moment. You can see these 4-hour candles. Really not much happened in the last day or so with this pair. I'll just show you here. You can just see that nothing much has obviously really happened. So what I'm expecting is, which I'll explain on GBP USD in a minute, I do think we could still push higher on this pair and actually close this gap between the support and this resistance and take this out. The reason being is, if I look at GBP USD, now this pair, I mentioned last week that we were getting, the price was being compressed between a sort of triangle formation. We had this trend line that was coming down, the descending trend line, and this ascending trend line. I was waiting for a breakout of this to see a bigger movement, and I think that there could be a large movement, which I explained last week. Now we did finally get that breakout of that triangle. As you can see here, we came down to this sort of trend line. Price was up here last week. We came down to this trend line, sort of hovered around it for a little bit, and then we broke through. Now we have broken through the very important level of 1.300. This is a very key level on this pair. Reason being is you can see how we failed to break it many times back here. Now what I was explaining on Euro GBP is I think Euro GBP could push that a little bit higher, because on GBP USD I'm still not fully convinced on taking a short trade at this point. There was a short trade that was valid from higher up, which I'll explain in a minute, last week. But at the moment, you can see here, this whole sort of area here, this highlighted zone around here, you can see that every time we try and break through 1.3000, we sort of come down into this highlighted area and we reject and move back up. We rejected it here, rejected here, rejected here. We're sort of showing a little bit of rejection again on the 4 hour chart, but I wouldn't jump into this straight away when the market opens. I want to see how it acts. Now, I do think that we might see a little bit of manipulation with this pair. We could see this pair push down, bringing in a lot of sellers next week, now that we've cleared this. So there's either going to be two sort of options on this. I can see this pair either having a large sell-off and really pushing down and making a big move to the downside, or we sort of break into this sort of highlighted area that I've highlighted here, fail to break out of this sort of zone, and then move back up to the upside. So at the moment we're sort of in limbo. It's not an area where I'd want to look at taking a short right now. There's nothing, the risk reward isn't really there. We've literally just broke through a major support at the moment. So I want to see how price acts around this sort of area first. So my advice would be just to stand back from this for a little bit, see how this acts. But if pound does push lower and get weaker, then this means that Euro GBP will push to the upside as the pound will get weaker as well. And then from there, from this monthly key level at 0.8700, then I will be looking to see how this pair acts from here. But with GBP USD, if we do push down to the downside and then push up, then I would expect to see a rejection of Euro GBP and push back down to the downside. So on the GBP, I'm just going to stand back and keep an eye on this over the next few days and see how the price reacts around this major key level, and see. I do think, as it's a very key level, that we are going to see some sort of manipulation around here. So I'm going to stand back and watch and try and capitalize on it. So basically, with your trading, there's no point in making it difficult. There's nothing obvious here, and it's a dangerous zone. So it's always about managing your risk with trading. You always need to have risk reward and preserve your capital. So don't jump in and trade something. Just take your time, be patient, and wait for the signs, because once the signs come, they can be very obvious. Now, two episodes ago, there was a lot of entries, a lot of things that are open to us, and we gained over 500 pips. This week, not so much, a little bit like last week, but that's the way the market is. Sometimes things will be quite obvious some weeks, and there'll be loads of trades to take. Some other weeks there won't be so many. You just have to sit on your hands and wait. Now, that was GBP USD. Another pair I want to go over is USD JPY, because on Instagram I've been seeing so many people trying to sell this. There's even been memes being made about how long people are waiting for USD JPY to actually fall. And just going back to what I said last week on my Sniper Sundays, was that I could see this pair coming higher. I mentioned this Fibonacci sort of movement here. Let's go to the daily to make it a little bit more clearer. Now, I mentioned this sort of Fibonacci movement here and said that I don't think that the bulls are finished with this pair right now. That I do think we could pop up that little bit higher to 112.30, or possibly even up to 11300. Now, we've stalled all of last week on this pair. I know a lot of you probably want me to cover this because a lot of people have positions. Now, obviously, we can see here we're making a double top. We're at monthly resistance. It looks great. It looks great to short. But also look at the signs here. We got this daily candle here. We came back, rejected this sort of level, rejected the EMA here. So there is a good chance that this still could have that one last push. Basically, what's happened here is we're accumulating a lot of orders, a lot of price, and we're getting the liquidity that we need before we have the bigger move, which the market needs. It needs people to place money into the market before the next move can happen, the next bigger move. So you can see here again, we're ranging on a 4-hour chart here. We're trying to break to the upside, pull back down, try to break to the downside. See here, a lot of people would have jumped in a short when they saw that we broke this support level here. When this 4-hour candle, let me just drop down to the 1 hour. When this was breaking below support, a lot of people would have jumped in on this, not being patient. But this just shows that you just need to wait and know how the market structure works, because knowing that this was the support level here, as you can see here, this sort of support area, Knowing that this was the support level here and we needed a good strong close below this in order to start looking at taking short trades on this, I just sat back and waited on this. If anything here, 1, 2, 3, these 3 candlesticks is a reversal pattern, a strong reversal pattern to push up to the upside. It's called a morning star, morning star formation. So this pair still has the opportunity, or still has legs in it to go up to the upside still. So just like I mentioned on the on GBP USD, there is nothing clear about what's going to happen on this pair on USD JPY. So I really don't understand why so many people want to jump into it when anything can happen here. People are placing short trades and this could just blow through the roof. So go to an easier pair. You don't need to trade the one pair or your favorite pair. Or if you see that this pair is struggling and is in consolidation, basically this is 50-50 right now. So why choose a pair that is hard work when there's so many other pairs, currency pairs, where you can look for better opportunities and a lot more simpler entries. So that's my view on USD JPY. I am keeping an eye on this, but I'm not rushing to actually take a trade on this. I want to see a break below or a break above this consolidation zone. Once we get that break, then I can see this pair moving very, very fast, and I'll jump into a trade then and then ride it out. So as I said, we could break above this and push up high. We could go up another 100 pips or so. But then if we do get to the breakout to the downside, then we could see this pair coming down all the way back down to 111, and then maybe possibly even lower. But at the moment, wait, be patient, and wait for the breakout of that highlighted consolidation zone, and then we can look at a trade. I'll look at Aussie dollar. This was an important pair last week because there was a lot of news coming out with this pair surrounding it. So you might have seen that I took a short trade and a long trade on this, and you can see that this pair was sort of ranging as well. So on the 4 hour here, we can see I think we had a breakout to the upside here just before the news, which was again bringing buyers into the market just before the news came out, and then we pushed back down. But then from here, I'll just show you what I've done on this pair last week. I took a short trade on this when the news came out, came down about 70 pips or so. And then from here, I then went long. I've had a few messages about that saying oh, you were short and then you went long. And as I said, you need to just keep your eye on the market and see what it's doing, because it just gave some obvious signs here. So you can see we've had 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 rejections of this trend line. We had this again. This is a morning star formation, 1, 2, 3, and showed that we were rejecting this trend line, and we were having a sort of reversal from this area. So we pushed up, went broke the highs, but again 1, 2, 3. See these sort of candlesticks rejecting around this resistance level, and you can see that price is failing. It just doesn't have enough strength to stay up there. So at the moment, overall, I am bearish on Aussie dollar right now. I do think that this pair can come lower. We just go back out to the daily chart. We can see some obvious price action here. So we've rejected this trend line, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. We rejected it once more. We've had this doji candle, and we've had this bearish engulfing, and sort of engulfing the last 1, 2, 3, the 3 previous days, and we're back below the EMA here, and it does look like we're about to push lower. We just go back down to the 4 hour chart. We can see here that we've just broken the counter trend line. We've just broken the counter trend line here, so it does look like this pair can come lower. We're finding resistance from the EMA, and yeah, it looks like we can come lower from here. So I would like to see a nice clean break of this sort of level here. This last support, obviously we can see that we've just found some support. We've got support here, made a new high, came down, found support here again. Once you break this level, again you can look at coming back, retesting this as resistance, and if we find that resistance there, then we could place a nice short trade here and look at coming down to 0.7050 long term. But there will be obviously various supports that we need to look at along the way. So keep your eye out for these sort of levels here. But these are the levels I'll be looking at. Price can easily come down find support, come back up for resistance, and then move lower, and again find support, come back up for resistance, and then move lower. So I'll be looking at these sort of levels over the next few days or the next week. It will be a quiet week next week, I think. I'll just show you some fundamentals on Monday. Obviously tomorrow, bank holiday around most of the world. Tuesday, no real news coming out. Wednesday is Aussie news again, so keep an eye out on what I just mentioned on Aussie. We could see some big moves. We could obviously see a reversal and push back up to the upside. As you can see, if I just break away these support levels, at the moment, until this support level is actually fully broken, we are still sort of in a trend, an uptrend here, making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher high up here. We come down and made an equal higher low. So until this level is actually clearly broken, there is a chance that this could still push back up to the upside. Once this level is completely broken, then this sort of trend is invalid. Let's just see, does this channel work? This sort of trend that we've been in, see this channel? If we break this support, then this channel is invalid, or this uptrend is invalid, and then I'll be looking at selling Aussie dollar and coming down to these support levels that I said. So I'll be watching out for that and see if the news on Wednesday can actually help that or help give it a push in either direction. Then we've got Canadian news out on Wednesday as well, so that's something to watch out for. And then Thursday is some news coming out for the Japanese yen. So going back to the US dollar, Japanese yen, we may not see anything. We might not see this pair break out of this sort of consolidation zone until that news comes out and help give us a kick to break out either to the upside or to the downside. So I'll be watching out for that, watching out for Aussie dollar. And another pair I'll be looking out for this week, some of you may not know, Aussie dollar, it has some inverse correlation with USD CAD. So I'm going to be looking out for this. If USD CAD was to break out of this trend line, let me just go to the daily chart to get an overall view. You can see on USD CAD, we've got this sort of descending trend line, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 that we retested last week or yesterday. Last week, and we're coming up to test it again now. So we should find some resistance here. But if we actually manage to break above this trend line and push to the upside, then that will help my trade, my thoughts on my short trade on Aussie dollar. Because if USD CAD goes up, a lot of the time Aussie US dollar goes down, and they have an inverse sort of correlation, not 100%, but there is some inverse correlation there. So I will be looking at that, and also to help me on my USD CAD trade, if I do see this possibly breaking above this trend line and the Canadian dollar getting weaker, as I am short on oil. Now this is something that I explained to you last week, that I was looking at shorts on oil. We just need a break of this sort of $63 per barrel level. Now I explained the short trade on this a couple of times, I think over the last couple of Sniper Sundays. So we had a short, I was short a few times, I was short up here, came down, took some profit, came back up, took me out at my stop loss at break even. Same happened again last week, came back up. I keep getting in at the sort of tops around here, and the price comes down, I take some profit, and then it comes back up. I am again short from here, and I am expecting price to fall a little bit lower. I do want to come down and retest the bottom side of this channel, and if we can break below the $63 a barrel level, then I do see a bigger pullback on oil coming back down, possibly even back down, all the way back down to $60 a barrel sort of level. So if we can see that, we can see a pullback in the oil price and come back all the way, break below $63 a barrel, then I do expect to see some weakness on USD CAD, and therefore I expect to see Aussie dollar push down. Now that might be a lot to take in for some people. That just shows you, that just touches the tip of the iceberg on how commodities affect different currencies, and there is a lot more to it, and how stock markets can affect the different currency pairs, obviously the US dollar and so on. And also there was a tip for many of you didn't know, about the dollar index and how that affects many currencies as well. So that's been Euro US dollar, Euro GBP, GBP USD, Aussie dollar, expecting shorts in this once we can break the support level. USD CAD, watching out for around this level and seeing if we can break above this trend line. If we do, then I see us coming up towards this resistance first at 1.35 or 3450, and then coming up to 1.3500. USD JPY, keeping an eye on it, not jumping into it yet. Take your time. We've got Japanese news later on in next week, so maybe nothing will happen till then. And US oil, I'm still looking at taking shorts on this. Now, US oil, obviously, if we break above this resistance here, this trend line resistance, then we have this this commodity could actually just blow through the roof. So be very, very careful with trading this. Stocks need to be just above around $65 a barrel, because if we break this last high here, I do see this going a lot higher. So that's a good few pairs I've gone over today. Hope that you have a good trading week and make lots of profit. I'll update on my Instagram during the week. I was a little bit more quieter this week as I had a lot going on. But next week, I will be posting a lot more and some more entries and so on. So keep an eye on my Instagram. And yeah, I'll keep you guys all updated. Have a good Easter. Enjoy the rest of your bank holiday and the bank holiday tomorrow. And I will catch up with you guys next week. Thank you.